Hey everyone, this is your host Sonia, and welcome to Sonia Space. I've created this friendly space to inspire and encourage my listeners throughout their day. On this podcast series, I want to talk about life, relationships, mental health, women empowerment, hardships, and new experiences. My goal is to have an authentic and vulnerable discussion with my listeners. Hey there, thanks for tuning in to another episode on Sonia Space. This is episode 11, and I know it's been a while since I have recorded an episode, but this past week I was recovering from a jet lag that I had. My husband and I, we recently went to Japan and Korea, and we got back sometime last week, and I am now I'm able to say that I'm finally back on a proper sleep schedule. It took me days to get back on a proper sleep schedule. So today I had the opportunity to start scripting and work on my podcast. So I did want to dedicate this episode to travel. Travel is something that I love doing, and I love doing it with my favorite person, aka my husband. And we recently just went to Japan and Korea. It was a trip of a lifetime. It was honestly one of top three trips that I've taken in my life. And we had such an amazing time, especially with the culture shock and everything. So I wanted to come on here to talk about my experience in Japan and Korea, and also give you guys some travel tips and essentials and some perks that you can apply to your future travels. So Jesse and I, we both have a couple of travel reward cards. And if you don't have one, please go get one. Even if you're only traveling a couple times a year, the benefits really outweigh the cost of the travel reward card. I mean, you get access to lounges all around the world and at most airports. You get TSA and global entry paid for. You have other perks that you can use, such as priority access to rental cars and, entertainment and concert tickets. There's so many things that you can have access to, and then you can just stack up all of these miles and these points as long as you book through the travel card. And there's so many things that you get from having a travel reward card. But if you want my personal opinion on which card to get, I have both. So we have both Chase Sapphire Preferred, Reserved, and Capital Venture X. We both personally really like Venture X, even though the annual payment is a little bit higher than the other ones, but you get a bang for your buck by using that reward card because there are way more perks, in my opinion, and you get more miles for every purchase that you make, especially when you make travel purchases. I feel like Chase is better for dining personally. I have seen that you get more points for dining with Chase, but honestly, we just use everything on our Capital One Venture X card. Another great thing about these travel cards is that you can transfer your points to either certain airlines, especially if you're flying internationally, or to some loyalty hotel rewards programs. So for instance, my husband and I, we both have Marriott Bonvoy, and my husband uses it a lot, especially for work and leisure. There's been a couple of times where we've gotten free rooms and really nice rooms through, we use Marriott Bonvoy, which we really like. So while we were in Japan and Korea, we only used Marriott Bonvoy hotels because I feel like they're really nice hotels, more high end and really nice. So 2 things I would highly recommend you doing is look into getting a travel reward card and also sign up for a hotel loyalty program. It will help you in the long run because you can just stack up those points and then get free trips and free nights at hotels. Really take advantage of your points. And another thing I really like, who the heck doesn't use Amazon? I use my points for my credit cards towards Amazon purchases as well. So I really like that perk as well. Another recommendation that I have for traveling is, especially for international flights, you want to make sure you're traveling comfortably. I mean, not everybody has the luxury of getting business class or first class, but make sure you're packing things that help you fly comfortably and also have a comfortable experience at your destination. So there are a few travel essentials that I have when I go on flights, especially international flights. Number one is making sure that I have a blanket and a proper neck pillow. I recently got the turtle pillow. It's spelled out TRTL. And the great thing about this pillow, it's very different than the conventional neck pillows that are out there. The great thing about the turtle pillow is it really keeps your neck in one place. And that's the most important part of making sure that you don't get shoulder pain or neck pain or back pain, especially, sitting in that seat for 10 plus hours. So the turtle pillow basically wraps around your neck and makes sure that your neck stays in one spot. And it's very comfortable because it's like there's a pillow on either side of your neck and you're just kind of resting on it. That has worked really well for me on my trip to Japan. So I would highly recommend getting a turtle pillow. And a couple other things that I took for my flight was, one, I took a AirFly. It is this gadget, this device that you plug into the port where the headphones go in. So you know how on airlines they'll give you headphones because you can't use your personal headphones? Well, I don't like that because I like using my headphones. But there's this Bluetooth device that you put into the port where the headphones go in, and then you can just connect your personal headphones to that device. So that is really convenient when it comes to like watching movies or TV shows or whatever you want to do. I think it's really helpful on trips, especially I don't like being attached to the monitor. I feel like I'm able to move more freely with Bluetooth headphones. The last thing that I would highly recommend in doing is making sure that you get an air tag and sticking it in your check-in bag. Y'all, on our honeymoon, we lost our bags. We could not find our bags when we landed in Italy, and we waited in line for an hour and a half just to figure out where our baggages were. And apparently they were delayed, and then they said they would get back to us in a few days. So Jesse and I, we didn't really have anything, and we had to go shopping to get our toiletries and clothes and things of that sort for like the first 3 days in Positano. And I had the cutest outfits and everything. I had no makeup, my straightener, everything was in my check-in bag. So I made sure that I stick an air tag in my check-in bag because that way I can track and make sure where the bags are. Also, whatever carry-on that you take or personal item, make sure you add some toiletries and some essentials and spare outfits in there just in case you do lose your baggage or, if it's delayed, because you don't want to be in a country where you're going to have to just shop and buy things, especially when you're tired. I mean, it's great to always go shopping, but at least you have the things that you need. So make sure you take some personal items and toiletries and things of that sort in your carry-on bag as well. By the way, this trip that we just took to Japan and Korea, so on our way back when we landed in Dallas, our bags did not make it to baggage claim for whatever reason. I think they got misplaced, but I checked on my AirTag, but I did see that it was at the airport. It just didn't make it to baggage claim with the other bags. So I felt a sense of relief because we had to get on our other flight back to Austin. So it's just gives you a peace of mind knowing where your baggages are. And I did quite a lot of shopping in Japan as well. So I wanted to make sure that I had everything. Let's get into our experience in Japan and Korea. I just want to say that this was a trip of a lifetime. Japan and Korea has been on my bucket list for the longest. And my husband and I, we've told ourselves that we want to make one trip, one international trip per year. And we decided that this year we were going to be doing Japan and Korea. And the reason why we included Korea is because Korea is not too far out from Japan, and the flights from Japan to Korea are so much cheaper than having to do a whole separate trip. And we figured we can just spend a few days in Seoul. So I'm glad that it worked out that way. On this trip, we wanted to do some of the major cities in Japan, and we really wanted to cater our experiences and activities for what is unique to that region, right? So we wanted to obviously have all the sashimi that we could have. We wanted to try different types of seafood. We wanted to go to some of the nature areas, and we went to the bamboo forest. We went to some shrines, some temples. And, as far as drinks as well, like whatever drinks are popular in that region, we wanted to experience. So again, it was a trip of a lifetime, and I would highly recommend you going, especially if you love to experience that culture shock. So I'm not someone that watches anime. I've watched some. I don't think my husband has, but I've watched some. But I know for people who really love like anime and manga would really obviously love Japan. And I was trying to think of a word to explain Japan. The word that we could think of was whimsical. But Japan in itself, it's so much more orderly and so much cleaner, in my opinion, than the US. I mean, there's so much order and like respect. You can sense that from people while you're going around in Japan. And they're very friendly. They're very friendly. They're very friendly to tourists. And going around Japan was honestly not that hard. I mean, we had Google Maps and Apple Maps, and we used the tram service, the subway service, all around Japan, except when we had to go from Tokyo to Kyoto, we used the bullet train service. But even then, that was so convenient to use. And they even have Uber there. So if any of the nights we were like so tired and we just wanted to get back to our hotel, Uber was easily accessible. Now, in terms of language barrier, honestly, Jesse and I didn't have too much of a hard time in Japan as opposed to Korea, but Japan is very tourist friendly. A lot of the signs were in Japanese, but also in English, and even like the menus, they would provide us an English menu as well with the description for the most part. So in terms of like the language barrier, it wasn't too bad. And if there was a language barrier, the like stores or the restaurants would have this translation device, which was really cool, that you can speak into, and then it would translate to the native language. So that was really convenient. So they're aware, and they know that they have the right tools to ensure that they're able to communicate with the tourists. And not only that, the Google Translate app is so convenient because it has a built-in camera where you can put the camera right in front of a product and it'll actually translate it for you in real time, which was really convenient. And at times I would like type stuff out into the app to translate. So that was also really convenient. So if you ever travel outside of US, I use Google Translate in Europe too. So that was also really helpful. So the first place we went to was Tokyo, and we flew into Tokyo and spent 3 nights and 4 days in Tokyo. And in hindsight, I feel like we should have spent more time in Tokyo, but of course we wanted to explore the rest of Japan. Tokyo was a lot of fun. I mean, Tokyo is the most populated city in the world at about 37 million people. And there were so many buildings and so many people, and just getting to the airport and going into the city was such a culture shock. And we stayed in this area called Ginza, which is like the financial district of Tokyo, and have a lot of corporate buildings and offices there as well. So here are a few places that we explored in Tokyo. So we were really close to the Tsukiji fish market. look it up online. So basically, they have all of these street vendors outside and they have such delicious food. And they open at 9 a.m. and they close pretty early. It was about like a 10-minute walk from our hotel. We had Wagyu beef on a stick, which was so freaking good. It was delicious. You know, Japan is known for their Wagyu beef, and they had all these desserts, different types of food, fried seafood on a stick, and it was so good. So we did that the first day we were there. And then some other places that we went to were Shinjuku. And so Shinjuku is like, think of Times Square. Times Square in Japan, but like on steroids. So that's where they had a lot of the shops and a lot of entertainment for tourists. And it's just like a very lit up area. And we went to this small, narrow alleyway. It's called Omeda Yokocho. I'm probably butchering that right now, but it's this really cute, narrow alleyway with a bunch of bars and restaurants. It was such a busy spot. And I'm sure that area that we were in, I've seen it in movies, I've seen it in shows. It's a very busy area, and that's where people go to get food or get some drinks. It was such a nice spot. And then one of the other days we went to Shibuya, which is a spot for tourists as well. And that's where they have the tallest building in Tokyo. And unfortunately, we were able to get up there, but it was raining. So we didn't do like that outdoor rooftop terrace thing, which I was kind of bummed out about. But overall, that area is really nice. And there's a whole bunch of shopping spots there as well. So that is where like the Nintendo store is. And I also went to the Capcom store and I got some like souvenirs and some things for the house. So that's a good spot to go to as well. And then they have that famous Shibuya crossing, which is the largest crossing in the world. And standing on the sidelines and watching people cross the Shibuya crossing is like one of the craziest and most mind-boggling things I've ever seen, because there's so many people going in different ways and the crosswalks are really wide. They're really big. And that was an awesome experience. There were so many people. And it's just like when you look at the crossing and just like all of the buildings, it's such a culture shock. I've never seen anything like that. As far as food, of course, we had ramen, which was delicious. Honestly, the best ramen I've had in my life. I mean, you wouldn't be surprised, right? Like, I'm in Japan, so why wouldn't I have the best ramen? And we've had a lot of like street food. We had the Wagyu like beef sticks. We had some like little snacks and whatnot. And then Japan and Korea, they're known for their 7-Eleven. Their 7-Eleven has a wide array of fresh food, packaged food. I mean, their quality of food is really good. So I would get milk tea. I would get like cheesecake buns. I would get little sushi rolls. They had so many things. It was kind of overwhelming in a way because there were so many options. So Jesse and I would literally have brunch there. We would have breakfast there. And then there was one like really close to our hotel in Kyoto. We would just grab snacks and then have that for breakfast in the hotel lobby. We also found a restaurant where we can get the authentic omakase experience in Japan. And it was one of the best experiences, food experiences I've had in my life. So if you don't know what an omakase experience is, it's basically a chef's course tasting menu. So the chef decides what you will eat. Of course, they'll ask you like if you have allergies to anything, but they will have a full course menu for you to try out. And we had so many different types of seafood, like whitefish, tuna. We had beef sushi, like raw beef sushi. We had eel. It was so delicious. It was honestly one of the best food experiences that we've had. And that was the last night we were in Tokyo. And it's really nice because it feels really personable. You're having a conversation with the chef. We were having a conversation with the waitress who was his wife. So it was this couple that was running this restaurant. So it was really nice. You get to talk to people next to you as well. Unfortunately, in this case, they only spoke Japanese, the people next to us, but we were able to interact with the chef and the wife. So our next stop was Kyoto, I really wanted to stop at Mount Fuji in between and do like a day tour, but unfortunately, it was raining around that time or it was just cloudy. So we weren't able to go to Mount Fuji, but it's fine. We'll go some other day. But we took a bullet train from Tokyo to Kyoto, which was about 2.5 hours. And if you were able to drive or just take a regular train, it takes 6 hours. And this train goes like 200 something miles per hour. At one point, I was feeling a little woozy. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going really fast, but you get used to it eventually. So I sat on the right-hand side because you can actually see Mount Fuji on the way to Kyoto, but unfortunately, like I said, it was cloudy, it was kind of rainy, so I missed out on that. But we got to Kyoto, and Kyoto was my favorite part and my favorite city from the entire trip. So Kyoto has a lot of temples and shrines, and they have so much beautiful natural scenery all over. So Kyoto's this little city, and then you have like mountains on the right hand side and then on the left hand side. So you're like in between the hills and the mountains. And then you have like temples and shrines in the mountains. It was so beautiful. It was like obviously much smaller than Tokyo, but being surrounded by nature and these temples and shrines, I just loved that experience and that feeling of it. So we went to the Arashiyama bamboo forest, which was the craziest thing ever. It was like this area with a bunch of tall bamboo trees. I actually had no idea that bamboo trees were that tall. So we were like in this nature spot and they had multiple gardens, statues and sculptures in that area. And then we also did this garden tour where you find some vantage points to overlook the city of Kyoto. And then we ended up in this tea house and had tea. So we had a lot of matcha tea and green tea in Japan. Another cool thing that we did in Kyoto is, as I've mentioned, there's a whole bunch of temples and shrines in that area. So we went to this specific shrine. It's called the Fushimi Inari Shrine. And it's famous for, and I had to look this up, vermilion torii gates. So there are these like gates, there are these tall red gates, and it's on these trails. So there's like mini trails, and then there's this long trail of these gates, which goes through the wooded forest, and then you end up at this big temple on top. It's on Mount Inari, and it stands at 233 meters. But we weren't able to go all the way up because it was starting to get dark, but the entire round trip takes about 2 hours. So we went like almost halfway up, and then we found a turnaround point, and then we went back down because it was getting too dark. But I wish we had gotten there a little bit earlier, because in that way we would have done the entire thing. But it was so beautiful. I've never experienced anything like this. Like, I've always wanted to go to a shrine or like a temple in Japan or China. So I'm so glad that I was able to experience that with my husband. On one of the days in Kyoto, we made a day trip to Nara, which is about an hour south of Kyoto. And it's known as the deer city. They literally have deers roaming around in the parks, and you can feed them, and they're super friendly to tourists. But the main reason why we wanted to go there was because of the nature scenery. It's more like in the mountains, and we wanted to go to the Tojairi temple. So Nara is known for that temple, and it's a Buddhist temple, and it's one of the bigger Buddhist temples, and they house one of the largest Buddhist statues in the world. So this one was about 15 meters tall. And when I first of all, the temple was humongous. It was huge. It was grand. When you walk into the temple, you see this bronze Buddha statue, and you're just appalled. You're so in shock because it is so huge. And it was such a beautiful, beautiful temple. And then they have some smaller Buddha statues near the big Buddha statue. So this is called the Buddha Hall, where they have a bunch of Buddha statues in that area. We spent about 3 nights in Kyoto, and then we made our way to Osaka, which is west of Kyoto. So that was our last spot in Japan. Osaka is known to be very lively. They're known for their nightlife, they're known for their food. And one of the things that I had in Osaka, which I was obsessed with, was fried octopus balls. And then they would put this sauce on top of these octopus balls, and it was so delicious. So in Osaka, there is this street or this area called Dotonbori, but basically there's a whole bunch of lights in that area, and it's like it sits on top of a small river, and there's so many street vendors in that area. So Osaka is known for street food. They're awesome street food in Dotonbori, and I had the fried octopus balls, we had gyoza, I also had this thing called 10 yen on a stick, which is basically made of pancake batter and mozzarella cheese, and it was so delicious. I was obsessed with the street food in Osaka. And then our last night in Osaka, we went to we found this random restaurant in this small alleyway, and we had one of the best dining experiences with so many different types of wagyu beef and cuts of beef. It was so delicious. The restaurant is called Kita Shinchi Harami Hozenji. I had to give them a shout out on my podcast because the food was so freaking good. We also checked out one of the largest aquariums in the world in Osaka, which was really cool. I saw a whale shark, I saw some starfish. It was really cool. It was an awesome experience. And right by the aquarium, we also took a boat ride by the city. So Osaka is a huge port city and commercial center. So we took about like a 45-minute boat ride near the city. And then there was also a Universal Studios in that area, which I didn't know, but that area was super nice. And then we also went to Observatory Deck in Osaka. It is called the Kuchu-tien Observatory, which is closer to the city center near like downtown area. And they had like an indoor area and an outdoor area, and it like circles around the building, which was really cool. I would definitely recommend that place if you're going to Osaka. So after our 10th night, we flew out to Seoul from the airport in Osaka. So we flew into the Incheon airport, which is about an hour and a half away, I kid you not, from Seoul. So it's pretty far away from Seoul, but it's a huge international airport. And we spent 3 nights in Seoul. We were initially going to spend 4 nights, but I think we wanted to come back already. We were feeling pretty tired. So we spent 3 nights in Seoul, and we stayed in the Myeongdong area. So think of Times Square in New York. It's very hustle and bustle. Like there's so many people out there. There's a bunch of lights. So we stayed in Myeongdong. So some of the cool things that we did in Korea, one, we checked out the History Museum, which is beautiful and it was huge. We checked out the History Museum in Korea, which was awesome. Then we went to the Lotte Tower, which I didn't even know, but it is the 5th largest building in the world, and it surpasses the one tower. And that was an awesome experience because we went up to the observatory deck, and on the grounds, they had a bunch of restaurants and stores and very like high-end restaurants and stores. So that was pretty cool. We also went to this library called the Starfield Library, and it was like this futuristic library, and it had floor to ceiling bookshelves. I would have gotten a book from there, but it is a library. But that was one of the coolest things that we've also seen in Korea. I have a coworker that lives out in Korea, and he recommended a restaurant to me and my husband near our hotel, and it totally worked out for us. And the whole concept of this restaurant was to get the authentic Korean cuisine experience. So you go to this place, you go up the stairs, and then there's this outside terrace, and it had multiple private rooms with sliding doors. And so we had one of the rooms, and we went in there, and they provide you with a full 12-course menu. And it was interesting. It was different. It was interesting. We did like the food. I mean, we had like sashimi, we just had different types of food. We had some fried fish as well, which was also really good. A new thing that we tried at this spot, it was called ginseng tempura, ginseng like the vegetable, and it was really overpowering. So ginseng is consumed a lot in Japan and in China. It's actually really good for your digestive system. But I just could not do it with the taste. It was way too overpowering for me. And then they had other courses that also had some ginseng in it. And we realized we both just don't like ginseng, but everything else was really good and really delicious. It's definitely a spot to take somebody that's new to Korea and wants like an authentic experience. Or like if you're having like a corporate dinner, this is like the spot to go to. And of course, Korea is known for their top of the line skincare products. And I really wanted to get a full on skincare experience. I wanted to have like a skincare day for myself. So I went to this place in Gangnam called Shine Beam, where I got a skin analysis of my face. It basically told me like my trouble areas. And we need this type of technology in America. And if we do, it's very rare, but it's very common in Korea. They really focus on preventative skincare as opposed to restorative or reactive skincare. And so I did the skin analysis of my face and I found out like my trouble areas were like hyperpigmentation and dryness. And I got this aqua peel, which is like getting a hydrofacial, but much better. And my face was glowing. It was so bright. And the whole process took about 2.5 hours. And then afterwards, we went to the mall and I just bought a whole bunch of skincare products. So I'm actually going to do a skincare haul or like a shopping haul for my trip on Instagram. I'm going to be posting a video. So if you follow me on Instagram, Sonia Space Podcast, I will be posting some stories of the shopping that I've done in Japan and Korea. And I've done quite a lot of shopping. So these were my favorite moments or like the takeaways from Japan that Jesse and I really enjoyed. Of course, we did a lot more. There's more to it for Japan and Korea, but these were like our favorite things that we've done for our trip. And I think I would definitely Actually, I know I will definitely go back to Japan. I really want to make a nature trip to Japan. I want to go to some small mountain towns. I definitely want to spend more time in Tokyo next time and check out Mount Fuji. As far as Korea, we really did like it, even though we spent 3 nights there. But compared to Japan, I feel like Japan was more appealing and it was more tourist friendly. Whereas Korea, there was a huge language barrier. I mean, we couldn't even really use Google Maps. We had to download a whole nother app called the Nara app. And so I think at that point, we just didn't even want to deal with the subways. We wanted to Uber because Uber is still relatively cheaper than what we pay here in the US. So it was kind of harder to get around, but I still had a lot of fun. Maybe someday I'll go back to Seoul, but I would definitely go back to Japan. I wanted to end this episode with a quote, and of course, it's going to be a travel quote. And the quote is by St. Augustine. It's, "The world is a book, and those who do not travel read only one page." Being able to travel, especially in countries like Japan and Korea, which are just far away as possible from the US, and it really exposed me to a different way of living and perspective. And it does challenge your assumptions about a place. Like, I was so shocked to see how clean and orderly Japan was and the types of culture and food that they offer over there and how friendly they are and the amount of respect that they show to others. So Japanese people are very respectful and very nice. And we really did have to step out of our comfort zone, especially with the language barrier. Yeah, things were accessible, but there were times where we had to use nonverbal language to get around. And I feel like there's so much out there. There's so much more to explore out there. And I feel like you're not really living if you're not exploring to other areas and meeting different types of people and learning new languages. You're making these memories from all of these adventures and excitement that you have from traveling. You're making these lasting memories that you'll cherish for a lifetime, and you're creating these unforgettable moments, and I would not replace anything for it. Thank you so much for listening in today. I am so grateful for all the support and feedback I've been getting. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to Sonia Space, and follow me on Instagram for sneak peeks on upcoming episodes as well as other inspirational content. I hope your day goes well, and I've left you feeling inspired. Bye-bye.